Ladies and gentlemen, love is a beautiful yet complex emotion. It brings two souls together, creating a deep connection filled with care, passion, and commitment. But what happens when the man who once showered you with attention suddenly begins to ignore you? Does it mean he has stopped loving you? Not necessarily. Men are often perceived as strong, independent, and resilient individuals who can handle any challenge that comes their way. Society has conditioned them to suppress emotions, remain composed under pressure, and avoid appearing vulnerable. This conditioning can make it difficult for a man to openly express his struggles, even to the woman he loves. When a man begins to ignore someone he deeply cares about, it does not always mean that his love has diminished. Instead, it might be a reflection of his internal battles and the way he has been taught to deal with difficulties. When a man is overwhelmed with his own struggles, he may retreat into silence rather than seek comfort. Unlike women, who are generally encouraged to express emotions and seek support from loved ones, men are often expected to solve problems on their own. This expectation stems from traditional gender roles that portray men as protectors and providers rather than individuals with emotional needs. Because of this, when a man faces challenges such as career pressures, financial burdens, family issues, or personal insecurities, he might withdraw instead of reaching out for help. Ignoring the person he loves is not a deliberate act to hurt her. It is often an unconscious reaction to his stress and an attempt to regain control over his emotions. For many men, silence is a coping mechanism. When life feels overwhelming, their first instinct is often to shut down emotionally and focus solely on problem solving. In their minds, addressing their struggles alone is a sign of strength. They fear that sharing their burdens might make them appear weak or incapable. This can be frustrating for a woman who loves him because she might misinterpret his silence as indifference or rejection. In reality, his withdrawal is not a reflection of his feelings for her, but rather a response to the stress he is facing. Another reason a man might ignore someone he loves when he is overwhelmed is that he does not want to be a burden. Many men feel a deep sense of responsibility for the happiness and well-being of their loved ones. When they are struggling, they may believe that bringing their problems into the relationship will add unnecessary stress to their partner's life. As a result, they choose to keep their struggles to themselves, thinking that isolation is the best way to handle the situation. However, this approach often backfires because it creates emotional distance and confusion in the relationship. There are also men who struggle to articulate their emotions. They may feel the weight of their struggles, but lack the words to express what they are going through. Emotional intelligence and communication skills vary from person to person, and some men find it difficult to explain their feelings, even to those closest to them. Instead of discussing their concerns, they retreat into silence, hoping that time or solitude will provide the clarity they need. In these cases, ignoring their partner is not intentional. It is simply a byproduct of their difficulty in processing emotions. In some situations, a man might ignore the woman he loves because he is afraid of how she will react to his struggles. If he has experienced judgment, criticism, or a lack of understanding in the past, he may hesitate to open up. He may fear that his vulnerability will not be met with empathy, or that his partner will see him differently if he shares his fears and insecurities. This fear of being misunderstood or seen as weak can push him further into isolation, even when he deeply cares for his partner. Another factor that influences a man's behavior during difficult times is his past experiences. If he grew up in an environment where emotions were not openly discussed, he might not know how to communicate his struggles in a healthy way. Childhood experiences and societal expectations shape how people deal with stress, and for many men, the default response is withdrawal. Even if he loves his partner deeply, his instinct might be to distance himself rather than seek comfort or reassurance. It is important to recognize that a man's silence during difficult times does not necessarily mean he wants to push his partner away. In many cases, he is simply trying to navigate his own emotions and challenges in the best way he knows how. And however, this can create confusion and frustration in a relationship, as his partner may feel neglected or unimportant. She may wonder why he is choosing to ignore her instead of leaning on her for support. The lack of communication can lead to misunderstandings, causing unnecessary tension and emotional distress. When a man ignores someone he loves due to his struggles, patience and understanding are key. Instead of assuming the worst, it is helpful to approach the situation with empathy. Giving him space while gently reminding him that he is not alone can make a significant difference. Encouraging open communication and creating a safe environment for emotional expression can also help break down the barriers that prevent him from sharing his struggles. While it is important to respect his need for solitude, it is equally important to remind him that he does not have to face his difficulties alone. The way a man processes stress and emotional struggles varies from person to person. Some men may need time alone to gather their thoughts, while others may eventually open up when they feel ready. The key to navigating this situation is to foster an environment of trust, where he feels comfortable expressing himself without fear of judgment or pressure. When he realizes that his partner genuinely supports him and understands his need for space, he is more likely to feel safe enough to open up and share his feelings. Understanding why a man who loves you might ignore you during difficult times requires a shift in perspective. Instead of seeing his silence as a lack of love, it is important to recognize it as a sign that he is dealing with something internally. Relationships thrive on communication, patience, and emotional support. By acknowledging his struggles and giving him the time and space he needs, a stronger and deeper connection can be built. Men are often perceived as strong and emotionally resilient, yet many struggle with vulnerability. Society has long conditioned men to suppress their emotions, equating openness with weakness. This conditioning leads many men to develop a deep fear of vulnerability, even when they are in love. When a man loves someone, he may find himself caught between his emotions and the ingrained belief that revealing his true feelings could make him seem less masculine or in control. As a result, he might distance himself, choosing silence over openness, not because he does not care, but because he does not know how to navigate the complexities of vulnerability. For many men, love is both exhilarating and terrifying. The deeper they fall, the more they fear getting hurt. Vulnerability means exposing one's deepest thoughts, fears, and insecurities to another person, trusting that they will be accepted without judgment. However, not every man finds this easy. If he has been hurt in the past, whether by family, friends, or former partners, he may associate vulnerability with pain rather than connection. To protect himself from potential heartbreak, he may create emotional distance, avoiding conversations that require him to open up. He might pull away when emotions run high, not because he does not love his partner, but because he is afraid of losing control over his emotions. Men who struggle with vulnerability often fear being misunderstood. If they have previously expressed their emotions and were met with criticism, dismissal, or ridicule, they may have learned that it is safer to remain silent. They may have internalized the belief that showing emotion leads to rejection or weakness, making them hesitant to share their deepest thoughts. Even if a man deeply loves his partner, he may find it difficult to express his fears, doubts, or insecurities. Instead of having an honest conversation, he may choose to withdraw. hoping that time will make his feelings less intense or that he can sort through them on his own. Love has a way of bringing out emotions that some men are not prepared to handle. A man may be perfectly comfortable maintaining a surface-level relationship, but as emotional intimacy deepens, he may feel exposed in ways he never has before. This can trigger a fear response, leading him to shut down emotionally or even ignore the person he loves. The closer he gets, the greater the risk of emotional pain, so he subconsciously creates distance. His silence is not a reflection of his love diminishing, but rather a defense mechanism to protect himself from the discomfort that vulnerability brings. In some cases, a man may ignore his partner because he is unsure of how to navigate emotional conversation. While women are often encouraged to express their feelings from an early age, many men grow up in environments where emotional expression is discouraged. If he was raised in a household where emotions were not openly discussed or where expressing feelings was seen as a weakness, he may lack the emotional vocabulary to articulate what he is experiencing. Rather than risking saying something wrong or exposing his uncertainties, he may withdraw entirely. Another reason a man might ignore someone he loves is the fear of disappointing her. Love comes with expectations, and if he feels that he is not living up to his partner's hopes, he may choose silence over confrontation. He may worry that admitting his struggles, weaknesses, or doubts will make him seem inadequate. Instead of sharing his concerns, he might withdraw, convincing himself that it is better to keep his worries to himself than to risk letting his partner down. This behavior is not about a lack of love, but rather an internal struggle between wanting to be the best version of himself and fearing that he is not enough. For some men, ignoring their partner is a way to regain a sense of control. Vulnerability can make a person feel powerless, and some men react to this by creating emotional distance. If he feels overwhelmed by his emotions, he may instinctively pull away, believing that space will help him regain his composure. This can be frustrating for his partner, who may misinterpret his silence as indifference or rejection. In reality, he may simply be trying to process his emotions in a way that feels safe to him, even if it comes across as avoidance. In relationships, emotional intimacy requires trust and patience. A man who fears vulnerability is not necessarily incapable of love. He simply struggles to express it in the way his partner might expect. His silence or withdrawal is often a reflection of his internal battle rather than a statement about his feelings for his partner. Understanding this can make it easier to navigate his behavior with empathy rather than frustration. Many men desire deep connections but fear the emotional exposure that comes with them. If a man has not been taught how to embrace vulnerability, he may instinctively avoid situations that require emotional openness. Love challenges people to grow, and for some men, learning to express emotions is a process that takes time. If he ignores his partner despite his deep feelings for her, it is often because he is still learning how to balance love with his fear of emotional exposure. Love is a powerful emotion that can be both exhilarating and overwhelming. When a man falls deeply in love, he may find himself experiencing emotions on a level he has never encountered before. While some men embrace these feelings wholeheartedly, others may feel the need to take a step back and process what is happening inside them. It is not uncommon for a man to ignore the person he loves, not because he has lost interest, but because he needs space to understand his own emotion. This behavior can be confusing, especially for a partner who is deeply invested in the relationship and wants to share every moment together. However, stepping back does not always indicate a lack of love. Sometimes it is simply a way for a man to regain clarity and ensure that he is making the right choices. Many men are not accustomed to processing emotions in the same way that women do. While women are often encouraged to talk about their feelings and seek emotional support from friends and family, men are frequently expected to deal with their emotions independently. This conditioning can make it difficult for a man to openly express his feelings, even when he is deeply in love. Instead of discussing his emotions, he may instinctively withdraw to analyze them in solitude. He might need time to determine if what he is feeling is real, if he is ready for the level of commitment that love demands, or if he can balance his emotions with the other responsibilities in his life. Love brings with it a sense of vulnerability that can be both beautiful and intimidating. When a man realizes the depth of his feelings, he may feel a mix of excitement and fear. The idea of fully committing to another person, sharing his life, and being emotionally open can be overwhelming, especially if he has been independent for a long time. The stronger the emotions, the more he may feel the need to take a step back and reflect on what this means for his future. He might ignore his partner not out of disregard, but because he is trying to process whether he is ready for such a significant emotional connection. A man may also need space when he feels that the pace of the relationship is moving faster than he anticipated. Love has its own rhythm, and while some people dive in head first, others prefer to ease into it. If a relationship becomes intense quickly, a man may instinctively pull away to regain a sense of control. This does not mean that he does not care. Rather, it means that he wants to make sure he is making the right decisions for both himself and his partner. He might need time to reflect on whether he can meet the expectations of the relationship, whether he is emotionally prepared for long-term commitment, and whether he is in the right place in his life to give the relationship the attention it deserves. There are times when external pressures make it difficult for a man to focus on love. Career ambitions, family responsibilities, financial concerns, and personal challenges can all weigh heavily on his mind. If he is dealing with stress in other areas of his life, he may feel that he needs to step back from his relationship to regain balance. In such situations, ignoring his partner is not a reflection of his love diminishing. Rather, it is his way of ensuring that he does not let external pressures negatively impact the relationship. Some men feel that they must have everything figured out before fully committing to a relationship. And if they do not feel stable in other areas of their lives, they may pull away until they regain a sense of control. Another reason a man might take a step back is that he needs time to understand himself better. Love has a way of bringing out emotions and thoughts that a person may not have confronted before. A man may begin questioning his goals, his values, and what he truly wants out of life. He may need time alone to reflect on these questions before he can fully invest in the relationship. Sometimes people enter relationships before they have fully understood themselves, and taking a step back is their way of ensuring that they are bringing their best self into the partnership. Men also need to feel a sense of independence, even within a loving relationship. If a man feels that his individuality is being overshadowed, he may create distance to reestablish a sense of personal identity. Love is a shared experience, but it is also important for each individual to maintain a sense of self. If a man begins to feel that he is losing his autonomy, he may pull away to remind himself of who he is. This does not mean that he loves his partner any less. Rather, it is his way of maintaining balance between his personal identity and his role in the relationship. Sometimes a man ignores the person he loves simply because he does not know how to express what he is feeling. If he is confused, uncertain, or emotionally overwhelmed, he may find it easier to withdraw rather than risk saying something that could be misinterpreted. He may fear that expressing his doubts or concerns will hurt his partner, so instead of communicating, he remains silent. Unfortunately, this can create confusion and frustration, as his partner may feel neglected or unimportant. However, his silence is often a sign of internal processing rather than intentional emotional neglect. Understanding why a man might need space to process his feelings requires patience and trust. When love is real, it does not disappear simply because one person needs time to reflect. Relationships thrive when both partners respect each other's emotional needs, even when those needs involve temporary distance. While it can be difficult to experience a period of silence or withdrawal from someone you love, recognizing that it is often a necessary part of emotional growth can help prevent misunderstandings. Feeling appreciated and understood is a fundamental human need, especially in relationships. When a man deeply loves someone but starts to feel unappreciated or misunderstood, he may gradually withdraw. This withdrawal is not always a conscious decision, but rather an emotional reaction to feeling like his efforts are unnoticed or that his true self is not being acknowledged. Love thrives on mutual recognition. And when a man feels that his actions, sacrifices, or emotions are not valued, he might create distance rather than openly express his dissatisfaction. Men often express love in ways that might not always be obvious. While some verbalize their affection, others show love through actions such as acts of service, problem solving, or providing stability. If these efforts go unnoticed or unacknowledged, he may start to question whether his presence and contributions truly matter. Over time, if he feels that he is constantly giving without receiving appreciation, he might retreat emotionally, not because he loves his partner any less, but because he feels emotionally drained. Feeling misunderstood can be equally frustrating. Every individual has a unique way of thinking, feeling, and processing emotions. When a man feels that his perspective, feelings, or struggles are not being acknowledged, he might begin to withdraw rather than engage in conversations that feel futile. This is especially true for men who find it difficult to express their emotions openly. If he has attempted to communicate in the past and felt unheard or invalidated, he may conclude that expressing himself is not worth the effort. Instead of repeating the cycle, he may choose silence as a form of self-protection. In many relationships, men take on the role of providers or protectors, whether emotionally, financially, or physically. This role is often ingrained through cultural expectations, upbringing, and personal experiences. When a man dedicates himself to fulfilling this role, but feels that his efforts are taken for granted, it can create a deep sense of frustration and emotional exhaustion. He may begin to feel like no matter what he does, it is never enough. Over time, this feeling can turn into emotional detachment, making him less responsive, less communicative, and more distant. A man may also feel unappreciated if his love language is not recognized or reciprocated. People express and receive love in different ways, such as words of affirmation, quality time, physical touch, acts of service, or gifts. If his way of expressing love does not align with his partner's expectations, he might feel as though his efforts are overlooked. For instance, if he expresses love by doing thoughtful things, but his partner values verbal affirmations, he may feel like his love is going unnoticed. This misalignment can create feelings of frustration, making him question whether his efforts truly matter in the relationship. Sometimes a man withdraws because he feels that his emotions are not validated. When he shares his thoughts, concerns, or struggles, and they are dismissed or minimized, he may begin to internalize his emotions rather than share them. If he feels judged for being vulnerable, or if his emotions are met with criticism rather than understanding, he may decide that it is safer to keep his feelings to himself. Over time, this pattern can lead to emotional distance, where he stops communicating altogether because he believes that his words will not be met with empathy. External pressures can also contribute to a man feeling unappreciated or misunderstood. Stress from work, financial concerns, family responsibilities, or personal struggles can weigh heavily on him. If he feels that his efforts to manage these challenges are not acknowledged or supported, he may start to feel isolated within the relationship. He might long for a sense of recognition and support, but if he does not receive it, he may gradually pull away, emotionally detaching as a coping mechanism. Unresolved conflicts can also make a man feel misunderstood. If he feels that his side of the story is not heard, that his feelings are being dismissed, or that the same arguments keep resurfacing without resolution, he may start to disengage. Constant misunderstandings or disagreements without productive conversations can make him feel like his voice does not matter. Rather than continue arguing or feeling unheard, he may choose to withdraw, creating emotional distance instead of engaging in discussions that seem to lead nowhere. Sometimes a man ignores his partner not because he wants to, but because he is trying to avoid further disappointment. If he has expressed his needs in the past and they have gone unmet, he may stop trying. He may feel that no matter what he says or does, the situation will remain the same. In this case, his silence is not an indication that he does not care. Rather, it is a sign that he feels emotionally exhausted from trying to gain the appreciation or understanding that he longs. Love requires recognition, validation, and mutual effort. When a man feels unappreciated or misunderstood, his emotional withdrawal is often a sign of his internal struggle rather than a reflection of his love for his partner. While it may be tempting to assume that his silence means he no longer cares, it is often the opposite. He cares deeply but does not know how to express his feelings in a way that will be heard and understood. Emotional overload can cause a man to withdraw from the person he loves, not because he wants to hurt her, but because he feels overwhelmed and unable to process everything at once. Life brings many challenges, and when emotions become too intense, some men instinctively retreat into themselves rather than seeking comfort in their relationships. This response is not always logical or intentional. It is often a coping mechanism that has been ingrained over time. Instead of expressing their feelings openly, they shut down, believing that dealing with emotions alone is the best way to regain control. Many men are raised with the belief that they must be strong and composed at all times. They are often taught to suppress emotions rather than express them. When they experience intense emotions such as love, fear, stress, or insecurity, they may not know how to handle them effectively. If a man feels emotionally overwhelmed by his relationship, his personal struggles, or external pressures, he may distance himself to avoid dealing with those emotions in a way that makes him feel vulnerable. Ignoring his partner is not necessarily a sign of indifference. Rather, it is a sign that he is struggling with emotional overload and does not have the tools to communicate his feelings. Some men fear that if they express their emotions openly, they will appear weak or incapable. Society has long reinforced the idea that men should be self-sufficient and emotionally resilient. When they find themselves feeling deeply, they may struggle to reconcile those emotions with their perceived role as providers, protectors, or leaders. Instead of admitting that they are overwhelmed, they may withdraw, believing that silence is preferable to showing emotional distress. They might hope that by taking a step back, they can regain control over their feelings without needing to expose their inner turmoil. Emotional overload does not always stem from the relationship itself. External pressures such as work stress, financial concerns, family obligations, or personal insecurities can accumulate and create a sense of mental exhaustion. When a man feels stretched too thin, he may not have the emotional capacity to fully engage in his relationship. He might ignore his partner not because he does not love her, but because he feels that addressing his emotions would require energy that he simply does not have at the moment. He may hope that by focusing on other aspects of his life, he can restore his emotional balance before returning to the relationship with a clearer mind. Some men experience emotional overload when they feel their emotions are outpacing their ability to process them. Love can be intense, and when feelings develop quickly or deeply, it can trigger fear rather than excitement. A man might withdraw because he is trying to make sense of his emotions without external influence. He may worry that if he expresses his feelings too soon or too strongly, he will lose his sense of control over the relationship. Instead of talking about his emotions, he may take time away to process them privately, attempting to understand whether his feelings are real, sustainable, and manageable. Another reason a man may retreat due to emotional overload is that he feels pressure to meet expectations. If he believes that he must always be emotionally available, make the right decisions, or provide unwavering support, he may start to feel overwhelmed. The pressure to always say the right thing, to always be strong, and to always meet his partner's emotional needs can create internal stress. If he feels that he is failing in any of these areas, he may choose to withdraw rather than risk disappointing his partner. He may believe that distancing himself is a temporary way to regain his emotional strength before re-engaging in the relationship. In some cases, a man may feel that expressing his emotions will only lead to conflict or misunderstandings. If he has experienced situations where his feelings were dismissed, criticized, or misunderstood, he may develop a habit of suppressing them instead. He might believe that silence is safer than risking an argument or an emotional confrontation. When he is feeling overloaded, he may instinctively withdraw because he does not know how to communicate his emotions in a way that will be received with understanding and patience. When emotional overload is combined with unresolved past experiences, a man may become even more prone to withdrawal. If he has faced emotional trauma, heartbreak, or abandonment in the past, he may associate intense emotions with pain rather than fulfillment. When he starts feeling deeply, he may instinctively retreat as a form of self-protection. His mind may convince him that distancing himself now will prevent future pain, even if the relationship itself is healthy and loving. Overcoming emotional overload requires self-awareness and communication. If a man recognizes that his withdrawal is causing confusion or pain, he may need to learn healthier ways of processing emotion. However, this process takes time, and during periods of emotional overload, withdrawal may seem like the only viable option. His partner may feel hurt by his silence, but in many cases, his distancing is not about a lack of love. It is about an internal struggle that he does not yet know how to share. Sometimes a man may ignore the person he loves because he feels that he is not ready for the level of commitment that love requires. Love, commitment in a relationship is not just about sharing time and space, but also about emotional, mental, and even physical investment. When a man feels that he is not fully prepared to make that kind of investment, he may pull away. Not because he no longer cares, but because he feels that he is not in the right place to offer the kind of commitment his partner deserves. For many men, the idea of commitment can be intimidating. It's not just about being there physically, but emotionally as well. A man who loves someone may struggle with the idea of being fully vulnerable and invested. While he may be deeply in love, he may not feel confident about his ability to meet the expectations of a committed relationship. This can create a sense of internal conflict, as he wants to be with his partner, but also fears that he is not ready for the level of emotional openness, shared responsibility, and long-term dedication that a committed relationship demands. One reason a man may feel unprepared for commitment is that he is not sure about his own readiness for such a deep connection. He might still be working on personal goals, career ambitions, or internal growth, and he may fear that entering into a serious relationship would divert his focus or require sacrifices that he is not yet willing to make. In these situations, a man might withdraw not because he no longer loves his partner, but because he wants to ensure that he is in a stable, secure place in his own life before making the kind of commitment that could have lasting implications. Some men also worry about the emotional responsibility that comes with commitment. When a man commits to someone, it means becoming responsible for their emotional well-being to some degree. This can be overwhelming, especially if he feels that he is not emotionally prepared to provide the kind of support, empathy, and nurturing that a serious relationship requires. If a man has never been in a long-term committed relationship or has had past relationships that ended poorly, he may be hesitant to jump into another one without feeling certain that he can be the partner his loved one deserves. Additionally, past experiences play a significant role in a man's fear of commitment. If he has experienced betrayal, heartbreak, or emotional neglect in previous relationships, he may carry those wounds into his current one. Even if he loves his partner, he may not be ready to fully trust someone again. This hesitation stems from a fear of getting hurt or repeating past mistakes. Rather than risk repeating those painful experiences, he may distance himself and withdraw from the relationship, not out of a lack of love, but out of a need to protect himself from potential emotional harm. Fear of losing independence is another reason a man may not feel ready for commitment. Many men have grown accustomed to their freedom and autonomy, and the idea of being in a committed relationship may feel like it requires too many compromises. They may fear that committing to one person will mean giving up aspects of their lifestyle, hobbies, or personal time. While these fears may seem superficial, they are often deeply rooted in concerns about losing identity and control. The thought of having to prioritize another person's needs above their own can feel daunting, especially for someone who values their independence. Some men may also be uncertain about their own ability to meet the expectations of commitment. Love can be exciting and passionate in the beginning, but as time goes on, the challenges of maintaining a committed relationship can arise. A man may worry that he will not be able to maintain the spark, deal with disagreements, or provide long-term emotional support. If he feels unsure of his ability to handle these challenges, he may decide to step back and avoid the commitment entirely. The fear of failure or inadequacy in the relationship can be paralyzing, causing him to withdraw as a way of avoiding the pressure to live up to expectations. Commitment also involves the realization that both partners are building a shared future. This future might involve making joint decisions, creating long-term plans, and blending lives in ways that require compromise. Some men may feel that they are not ready to make those kinds of decisions or share their future with someone else. They may fear the responsibility of shaping a life together, especially if they are unsure of their own path or future goals. If they are uncertain about where they want their life to go, they may find it difficult to envision a future with another person, leading them to distance themselves from the relationship. When a man feels unprepared for commitment, it can cause emotional confusion. He may deeply care for his partner, but feel conflicted about his ability to offer the kind of commitment that love demands. This internal struggle can lead him to pull away or become emotionally distant as he tries to make sense of his own readiness and capacity for a deeper relationship. Instead of confronting his fears head-on, he might retreat into himself, hoping that time will help him figure out what he truly wants. His actions are often driven by self-doubt and fear of being unable to live up to the demands of a committed relationship. Understanding that a man's withdrawal may be related to his fear of commitment rather than a lack of love is important for both partners in the relationship. It requires patience and open communication to address these fears and give each person the space and support they need to grow. If both individuals are willing to have honest conversations about their readiness for commitment, they can work together to create a relationship that is fulfilling for both.